Dandadan uses color very deliberately. Many characters in the story have colors associated with them. They'll play with saturation to express emotion, at some points even pulling it away completely. When it comes to color, Dandadan acts with a very heavy hand, which normally would be associated with a negative connotation. From its animation to writing and characters and everything in between, this show is completely unafraid of exaggeration. In other circumstances, this overt use might get in the way of a story, but with Dandadan, it just makes for a better show. Welcome to this week's video. My name is Pei, and today we're talking about how Dandadan uses color in a fantastic way. There are an abundance of strong examples in this show that demonstrate color theory in practice. The first we'll be talking about today is built around an action sequence. One of the primary characters, Okudun, is fighting a spirit called Evil Eye. Okudun's color is red. Evil Eye's color is purple. This show uses strong single-colored filters in a variety of different aggressive ways. One of my favorite examples is actually the focal point of this video that we'll explore in detail later. But first, let's focus on this specific scene. From the very first blow, we see the two colors clashing. But as the fight continues, a purple filter covers everything. Okudun's red accents are the only thing that break through. We see the colors clashing as they make contact with one another, and even used as an impact frame for just the briefest moment. And then when the fight's momentum finally shifts, the environment turns from purple to red. Mix in a fantastic stylistic art choice, and you get a major component of what makes this show work so well. It's aggressive, it's clear, the colors represent the momentum of the fight. And while this is an extreme example of color theory, it's actually around all the time, used in much more subtle ways, and understood much more intuitively. Because art is filled with tons of rules we can feel, even if we can't explain why. My favorite example when demonstrating just how deeply intuitive some rules can be despite not really understanding them is how English has an order of adjectives. If I were to say Clifford, the red big dog, it immediately would sound wrong, and it's not just because you're familiar with the kid's story. Languages have an order of adjectives, something that's intuitively followed, with some rare exceptions. If you wanted a character to feel eerie, off-putting, or alien, you could have them list these adjectives incorrectly, because a lovely round wooden spoon sounds correct, but a wooden round lovely spoon doesn't. It kind of even implies that the spoon is from a brand called Lovely Spoons. Okay, so there are intuitive rules that even if we can't explain, we understand. This absolutely applies to media. There's a rule in filmmaking that faces and eyes are humanizing. Take Star Wars, for example. Darth Vader and stormtroopers are all masked. This is especially apparent in the intense fight to destroy the Death Star. All of Luke's side characters that are the good guys, you can clearly see their face and eyes, whereas the TIE fighters are given masks and no spoken lines. Dandadan also uses eyes, really effectively actually. Ever notice how Okudun constantly fiddles with his glasses? This is one of his character tags, which refers to actions or traits that differentiate a character from other people in the story. And Dandadan does a lot with Okudun's eyes and glasses. When his character is being played more for comedy, there's a sheer over his glasses that prevent you from seeing his eyes, whereas the more intimate, serious moments in the story strip that away and draw attention to his face. And on the topic of color theory and Dandadan using eyes and glasses in symbolic ways, comes the next example from this video, Dandadan's Season 2 opening.
Body of clay, shape me how you will. You want me to stay, but I'm built to kill.
Despite being a big fan of anime, who's built a whole career talking about it, I've never really understood the obsession with openings. But as I've become more of a weekly watcher, it's started to make more sense. With 20-minute episodes that feel like they fly by, having the opportunity to get in the right mindset for something you've been waiting a whole week for is pretty helpful, especially when it comes to a show like Dandadan, given its extreme style, heavy tonal shifts, and claim to fame with Season 1's opening. In choosing to make a video about Dandadan's color theory, one of the best places to look at first is its openings. Another example of Dandadan's distinct use of color. From these cool explosions in the background like dye rippling through water that literally cast rim lighting on Okudun in the foreground with the saturation pulled, to these jump cuts with distinct color and texture that we've seen repeatedly since the first season's opening. There's a lot of cool use of color beyond what we've seen in the actual show. But one of my favorite examples from this season 2 opening is how they once again use Okudun's glasses symbolically, this time though placing the camera from his perspective. Staring through his lenses at Momo, he sees her in color, with the saturation around her pulled away. These are cut in between other first-person perspective shots of Okudun desperately searching a cave with a flashlight, once again with the saturation pulled away completely, clearly demonstrating what Momo means to Okudun in the story, how she breathes energy and life into situations. Storytelling is ultimately very driven by emotion, and tons of tools and rules have been created to help people evoke emotion. Color theory is no different, and there's so much depth to it. People have literal careers dedicated to color theory. Take for example a YouTuber named Kelsey Eng. She works in the animation industry and a while back released this fantastic video exploring the use of color in Frieren Beyond Journeys and specifically related to the character's eyes. She teaches tons of color theory concepts really intuitively, like how main characters tend to be given colors with more saturation, the basis behind color HSL, hue, saturation, and lightness. She explains the complexity behind the decisions made involving characters' eye colors in Frieren. The video is really worth watching in its entirety, and there will be a link to it in the description below. The point being that there's tons of deliberate thought and effort that goes into color theory. Decisions that constantly go unnoticed that heavily influence the way we experience a story. And Kelsey Eng's video is one fantastic example exploring that, because ultimately that's what storytelling is, an amalgamation of all these different components to make a singular product that we all have individual relationships with. Art is made to evoke some emotional response, and ultimately contributing to that is the purpose of all these different devices and rules. Another really popular convention of color theory that becomes obvious as soon as you learn about it is the use of complementary colors, specifically orange and cyan. Once you start looking for it, you'll see it everywhere. This is all built around the hue part of HSL, otherwise represented in the color wheel, with 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, and then 3 more secondary colors, orange, green, and violet. Then finally, the tertiary colors, splitting the difference between the 6 we've already introduced, blue, green, orange, yellow. This refers to the hue of a color, and when colors are on the opposite side of one another on the spectrum, they're complementary. Orange and cyan are mostly across from one another. And on the topic of hue, colors are often assigned to characters. Okudun's given red, Momo's given green, a primary and secondary color indicating the importance their characters have in the story. Now the colors used for these characters aren't singular hues. Momo's tends to venture into the green-blue spectrum, otherwise known as cyan, and Okudun's red sometimes turns orange, once again coming back to orange and cyan. And that's ignoring associations we have with colors and tons of other important topics. But my favorite example of Dandadan's use of color is actually a very simple one, paired with tons of other well-done elements, and it comes with a soft spoiler warning. I've mentioned multiple times so far that Dandadan has pretty intense tonal shifts. They go from almost cartoonishly ridiculous situations to incredibly sincere or heavy moments. One way to effectively do that is creating clear transitions that help audience change from one emotion to another. Visuals, music, sound effects, all of these things can help an audience shift mindset. And one really fun, overt way that Dandadan creates these transitions multiple times throughout the series is with a single color tone filter. A strong purple, red, or monochrome filter that takes over for a fight. They do the black and white footage thing multiple times, not just in the opening but also across season 1 and 2. Or maybe after a chaotic episode, they have a little moment shared between 2 very important characters. That's introduced with a change in sound design, music, and with a red filter. Okudun and Momo are fantastic protagonists, and part of the reason this show works as well as it does is because of their dynamic and budding romance. One such amazing scene between the 2 comes in the 2nd season. In a car ride home after an intense, chaotic adventure, the 2 of them hold hands. It's this complete change of pace, like you're being transported into some magical world. These moments of sincerity are so important. And they only work because they're built off of a foundation of all these little things that come together, like using fantastic colors at the right time.